All right, there we go. And now we are back live again. This time, not going to cut off. No interruptions in the background. Still here, still here. All righty. Let's pop some text up on the screen. That was loud. All righty. Get that text up there on the screen. Probably make it a little bit more visible. Apply. Boom. Bada bang. Bada bang. There we go. All right. Ladies and gentlemen, we got the guest request open and active. So anybody that wants to join up and discuss absolutely anything they can. I kind of cross posted this to both my Facebook and my Snapchat, inviting people who personally know me to come up here and check me on things that I may have said they just personally don't agree with. These conversations are open for absolutely everybody. So anybody that wants to come up here, I got a couple of things right down below, right down here. If you got any complaints or you just want to talk about how you disagree with them, and you can keep it civil and respectful, hit that request button or even comment in the chat. For the most part, I'll reply to just about anything that I see. A few exceptions: I won't accept homophobia, won't accept transphobia, no pro-Nazi stuff. Like, let's keep it civil and respectful. But all in all, yeah, kind of open for any discussions whatsoever. Nothing bothers me in terms of conversations. But yeah, that's really kind of like the whole purpose of this today. We can discuss anything, or we can discuss nothing. In the meantime, while we wait on people to come up, I am going to point out a couple of things that I got that are new. Oh, wait, we got somebody. Hopefully my echo doesn't start.
All right, this ought to be fun.
All right, how you doing today?
I'm doing great. I actually took the day off of work. Get to listen to more liberal cries all day. And most of the people, y'all own businesses and shit.
I feel you on that. I feel you on that. So what do you want to talk about?
Are you for the No Kings Act?
Oh, absolutely.
How did the last one go?
Uh, Pretty good, if you ask me. Pretty well received.
Yeah, pretty good. Yeah. Did it accomplish anything besides
So,
waste money and protests and riot in the streets? Yeah, just make more taxpayers' money, right? What did it accomplish?
so when you say wasting taxpayers' money, what taxpayer dollars went to any of the protests?
For the officers and the people that need to clean up the mess that you guys leave, the trash that you guys do, all your signs. So you're gonna close down, try to hold up traffic and shit. Making people not go to work. Stupid shit. That type of shit.
Yeah, I respect that. I don't know if maybe me and you saw different protests going on.
Well, I live in Baltimore, Maryland. I was here for the George Floyd. So I know all about the Summer of Love and your Black Lives Matter community. Where were they at for Kamala Harris, and why did they push the LGBTQ is what kind of blows my mind. Because the Black Lives Matter Foundation, the four lesbian ladies that were black and they criticized white people so much, ends up getting so much money. Instead of giving it back to their communities, they just buy mansions next to wealthy white people and complain about them, right? And then they get caught. That's why they weren't there for the last election. So I'm confused. Just like the No Kings Act, what did that accomplish other than division, riot, and chaos?
You touched on a lot of different points there. Can we pick one of the many different things that you touched
Yeah,
on and just focus
where's
on
the
that?
No Kings Act going to get us?
So, how do you believe that change is brought upon in a community?
I mean, we can talk about it. I'll give you that. Good, good. Gotcha. Continue. We talk about it, right?
Yeah, we talk about it. We bring attention to the
So,
issues that are
to
at
give you an
hand.
example, we should talk about it like Charlie Kirk. Instead of trying to bring in riots and people, we just talk about it civilly, manually, respectfully, morally, not running the streets and signs and saying, "Get out! You can't leave. We're gonna stop you." And that's where it goes. We can all see the videos. I can bring up some No Kings, which you guys tried because they did it in Baltimore City. And here's some funny shit because it happened in Baltimore City where I'm from. I drove through the city, and they also had the LGBTQ community, bro. There was more fags on this fucking street than the No Kings Act. I'm trying to tell you right now, there was nobody.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, he did use a little bit of a slur there, so we had to go ahead and kick him. That's part of the civility that I kind of talk about. We can't use slurs. Let's not do that. Like again, I'm open for any civil discussions, but we have to keep it civil. I'm completely down to listen if someone just wants to ramble on and on and on. As long as they continue to do that in a respectful manner, that's completely fine. We're just not doing the uncivil debates here or uncivil conversations. We can't allow religious extremists to take over in America or Europe. I will not lie to you. That is not something I'm very informed on. Would you like to explain a little bit more about what you're talking about? Anyways, yeah, we had our first guest up. Conversation seemed like it could have went in a very good direction, but instead of keeping things civil, they decided to devolve into using slurs, and we're just not going to accept that here. One, because it's just wrong. Period. We shouldn't use slurs. We should have respect for other people, regardless of whether we agree with their lifestyle choices or not. Especially if those lifestyle choices are not infringing upon the rights or liberties of others. So we shouldn't devolve into using slurs when we're having civil conversations. They're not productive and they get us absolutely nowhere. I won't condone it. I won't allow it on my stream. If you come up into the viewer box and you're using slurs or disrespectful terminology that dehumanizes another subsect of the human race, you will be promptly kicked and banned from the chat. So let's just try to stay away from that. I believe we can have productive and civil dialogue without having to resolve to immature conversation. Islamic immigration is destroying Europe. Um, so I would definitely need to look more into that topic as a whole to actually formulate any intelligent opinion on it whatsoever. I'm not going to just speak out of a place of ignorance if I don't know what's going on in that country. Um, I personally don't believe that immigration can be harmful. Not like that, not in the degree in which you're speaking about. I don't think that immigrants coming into a country indicates the taking over of said country. in any degree. But again, for that specific topic, I would definitely need to do more research so that I personally could understand about where we're coming from. Hey, hey, how you doing today?
Good, man. How are you?
I am doing pretty good.
Yeah, so just for some context on what you were talking about, I know in the UK they've had, I believe it was a 80% increase in non-EU immigrants, mainly coming from majority Muslim countries. And I think we can, if we're just being honest and not trying to be tiptoe around it, we can recognize that there are some cultures that are not they're not going to jive well with Western culture. Would you agree?
I could definitely see the point in which you're making.
So I do think that at a certain point, we have to be really honest with ourselves that massive influx of people from parts of the world that don't share the same cultures and beliefs, and are actually, you know, very anti-Western culture for, you know, to make a really broad statement. Um, I think that it can be problematic when you have a giant influx, especially into a particular community. So Dearborn, Michigan, for example, is the first majority Muslim community in America, or the first major city, I believe. So there is a lot of controversy there now with, the Muslim call to prayer being 6 times a day. They're blasting the Muslim call to prayer at 5 o'clock in the morning, uh, where I don't think that seeing instances like that is not something that we want to see popping up all across America. Would you agree?
So let's try to direct your point into a single sentence. Are you saying that essentially people immigrating into a country that have, and I'm asking, I'm not assuming this is what you're saying, I just want
Yeah.
clarification. Um, are you saying that essentially people immigrating into another country or coming into another country that have diametrically different views, lifestyles, beliefs is a net negative on that country as a whole?
I think it depends on the amount, right? So ultimately, I think that if you're going to move into a new country, you should try to assimilate into that country. So, for example, learning English, you wouldn't move to France and then, just not try to learn French. They're not that fond of just tourists coming to France and not being at least able to speak a couple of French sentences, right? Um, I do think that when you get into large numbers of cultures or people that are not interested in assimilating, I do think that that could definitely be problematic. Would you agree?
I could see that. I wouldn't necessarily say I wholeheartedly agree, but I can definitely understand kind of like where the logic comes from. I personally believe that one of the things that, speaking specifically for America, because I live in America, um, any thought that I have is going to pertain here to America in this situation.
Sure.
Um, I think that we are founded upon diversity, upon the idea of being a melting pot. And while I can agree that a person coming into another country could stand to benefit from learning the language, the culture, etc., of the country that they're coming into, I don't think that that is something that they should be shamed of if they don't, shamed for if they don't. Um, I personally believe that kind of like if people come into the country, it can be helpful to learn English. However, we are such a unique, diverse country that is so founded in those kind of beliefs that it would be very easy for people to not have to assimilate into our culture, but rather inside here in America, find the cultures in which they belong to and kind of like communionize, you know?
So that's kind of going back to the problem that I was talking about earlier, is where you're not interested in assimilating. You're interested in, making these communities. that are simply a mirror image of what they left, right?
Well,
So,
I'm sorry.
so because
Mhm.
that at that point, that's not a melting pot. That's a salad. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Um, but see, could you explain to me how it is inherently harmful for them to do that?
Sure. So, if, for example, they wanted to institute portions of Sharia law, right? Say that women could not come out of the house not completely covered, or have favoritism as far as the law goes for different ethnic minorities or religious minorities, or in the case of Dearborn, religious majorities. um, I do think that that could be a problem where you have. I mean, I think more or less it's really just a case of, if you want to come to America, you want to be an American, then be an American. Don't come to America and then try to find, a small neighborhood where you can just practice the exact same things that you were practicing before, be completely intolerant of Western culture. I do think that that's a problem, because it's important to a lot of people in America to preserve your culture, right? But we don't give Americans that same sort of grace to where it's understandable to want to protect your culture. Every other country in the world, and every other culture around the world, we think that it's important to protect theirs, except our own. I just find that to be odd.
Sorry, give me just 1 second, okay? I apologize. I definitely do apologize for interrupting your train of thought there.
You're good, man.
Apologize about that. I have a motion detection system and I have people working out in the yard. I forgot to mute it.
No worries.
Continue where you were going from.
No, I'd finished my point.
Okay, so I believe that here in America we have certain constitutional freedoms and things that kind of protect us from instituting things like Sharia law, et cetera, et cetera. We have freedom of expression. We can't just sit here and require in any community whatsoever, not localized, not from a federal level, and require or mandate a certain kind of dress code to our citizens. So I think that the fear of people coming in and bringing in their more law-based cultures, I feel like that's an unfounded fear personally. I don't think that they're coming in and doing that. Um, Furthermore, when they come into America, it's not always necessarily because they want to be American in the traditional sense. It's because they see America as this land of freedom because of the beliefs and the values that we publicly have touted throughout history. And they feel like the situations that they're leaving, uh, which are far more dangerous and or oppressive than the situations that they believe that they're coming into, would be a safer choice for them. So then when they come into these countries, into any country they immigrate into, off of the belief of it being a little bit better than the one that they're coming from, it is kind of normal for them to want to find a place of familiarity or safety within these communities. So then they create these communities that don't necessarily like pass any huge laws or anything like that that's mandating some of the things that you were talking about. Um, and again, I don't see how that's a net negative on our culture as America as a whole.
Yeah, let me try to find an example to just sort of show you where I'm coming from.
Yeah,
Is
absolutely.
it all right?
Yeah.
All right.
Let me see. So Till Shark says not when U.S. culture is white supremacy and oppression. I definitely agree that white supremacy and oppression kind of run deep and are significantly intertwined within our culture as a whole here in America. I was actually having just a really good conversation about this with my barber, not even like 20 minutes before hopping on this stream, in which we just kind of like discuss like, is it really possible to get to a point of true change in America by recreating an entire new government when new governments have been tried to be established before? And one of the main points that I pointed out to him is that I believe that now, in more time than ever, that we are at a place where we kind of understand and recognize that white supremacy exists. We understand that oppression exists. We have a lot more equal rights for our citizens than we did upon the founding of our country to begin with. So I believe that if we were to take that time and that energy and actually try to rebuild the government now, we could rebuild it on a better basis than what we started with the first time. That's just me personally, though. So I definitely agree with you, Till Shark. Ooh, I am enjoying the conversations. I genuinely did expect couple of those couple of those little Facebook folks to pop on over here and want to debate me because a couple of y'all were just going wild on the comments. Also, while he's looking up his sources, I just want to take a second to talk about like my personal stance on immigration and how I personally believe that it's a net positive as a whole. When immigrants come into the country, they boost the GDP through innovation and economic growth. It's crazy because they consistently contribute to society by working these jobs, by paying these taxes, and a lot of the times not being able to even claim any social benefits in return. So they're technically putting more into the economy than they're taking out of the economy, which again is a net positive. When they come into the country, whether that be legally or illegally, they do work and supply labor for jobs and or even get to a place where they own businesses, which opens up jobs for American citizens, which again is a net positive. Um, it's just kind of stuff like that. People talk about a lot about how you know people will come into the country and it can lead to a potential increase in crime, but many studies have shown that there's no real link to an increase in crime and immigration. Immigrants coming into the country are 2 to 3 less times likely to actually commit a violent and or non-violent crime. In reality, actually, tourists that come into the country are more likely to commit a violent crime than someone who comes into the country looking for refuge, whether that be the legal way or the undocumented way. Are you back?
Yeah, sorry, man. I had a work call. I've got to go. I'm gonna follow you, and hopefully we can finish this discussion another time.
Absolutely, man. I appreciate that. I
Yeah,
appreciate you
man. Have a
coming up
great
and
day.
keeping it civil.
Of course.
Have a good one. Well, guys, the floor is open for anybody else who wants to pop up here. We can definitely have a good civil discussion. I'm obviously, as you can tell, not as well versed as some of the other creators that are on here, but I do appreciate you guys stopping in and anybody who comes up and having these conversations with me. It's really great to kind of sit back and discuss these things with people and kind of get a good feel about where people are coming from, pick their mind, and ask the questions that I feel are very pertinent to figuring out the core differences in between my views and theirs and trying to address those things. Obviously, during that process, we're going to win some, we're going to lose some. But the whole point is that we actually do the process, and we do, use our voices and try to effectuate change. Because if we don't try to effectuate change and we stay complicit with a current system that is just absolutely atrocious, then we're gonna stay in an oppressive system. Um, yeah, but yeah, so we're about 25 minutes into the stream. The first guy essentially popped up here, kind of popped around everywhere during the conversation, and at the end of it, said a slur, got kicked and banned. So John asks, "What's bad about our system?" I mean, honestly, like right now, currently, what's not bad about our system? We have a president that is consistently trying to violate uh, many different core facets of our Constitution. And many people can argue that, oh, well, the checks and balances system has kept them in place. But a lot of people don't want to acknowledge the fact that the attempt in the first place is in itself unconstitutional and a threat to our system. There's been many things that he has done and gotten away with by just using threats of lawsuits, such as violating people's First Amendments, trying to not deplore, sorry, deploy the United States military against citizens, declaring a Antifa a T organization, um, when it's not even an organization. It's just a belief. It's literally just being anti-fascist. So essentially making it illegal to say that you're anti-fascist, which again is a violation of the First Amendment right. I say we have a president that finally wants to get stuff done. I mean, but then you have to ask yourself, what stuff does he really want to get done? Does he, the stuff that he's getting done is essentially Project 2025, my dude. And that's extremely dangerous to like the core values that we're supposed to stand for as Americans. Also, what do you mean by getting stuff done? Getting stuff done by what? Violating the Constitution and not like following the legal process to do so? Um, it's wild. Dude is just he's like, oh well, he's trampling on people's rights, but it hasn't personally affected me yet. So I say keep it up. I mean, yeah. And when they finally come to you, then you're gonna be standing there like, oh my god, he's treading on me now. Ah. How is he violating the Constitution? I mean, we've been over this so many times. We could just touch on free speech as a whole throughout history. Authoritarian regimes like Mussolini's Italy, Putin's Russia began with one consistent step: attacking the press and undermining constitutional freedoms. Trump's statements about silencing criticism consistently over and over again is not just one isolated outburst. He's shown us that it's part of a pattern that fits exactly how authoritarianism takes root. We could break this down even further, very happily, into two premises, a major premise and a minor premise. We could say that fact one, an authoritarian leader disregards constitutional rights. Minor premise: Donald Trump is disregarding the Constitution and threatening free speech, birthright citizenship, the right to assemble, the right to freedom of expression. Therefore, the Donald Trump is turning the U.S. into an authoritarian nation. I mean, we could just do it A, B equals C if you need me to break it down super simply for you. If you can explain to me in what way Biden used his influence to silence the media or to label people that have a belief as a T group, that would be amazing if you could let me know how Biden did that. Give me examples. Don't just say, "Oh, he did it," and then pull out some claim out of absolutely nowhere. Do me a favor and just give me a source. You can tell me a website, what to Google, what to look up. I'll look it up and then I can read it out for you. I mean, you can do an ad hominem and say that I'm disingenuous because of whatever reason you have, or you can address the point that I've made and actually respond to it by providing me a source that shows where Biden did the exact same things as Trump is doing now. It's up to you. Or you can just disappear from the chat. That's usually like during my live streams when I call people out on this. That this is kind of like what they do. Now he's talking about social media influence. Yeah, I definitely agree. I feel like that was wrong for Joe Biden to use any influence on Facebook whatsoever. However, he wasn't using that to silence people in the sense of like banning them off platforms and stuff like that. He wasn't trying to completely silence the media. He didn't say that if you criticize me, I'm going to get you taken off the air. He didn't threaten lawsuits against any media organizations or social media organizations whatsoever and say, hey, if you don't comply to what I'm telling you, I am going to sue you. He didn't use people that he appointed to positions of power to influence these decisions. Essentially, yeah. Um, just give me a source because Joe Rogan is not a source. Any real source would be absolutely amazing. Because I mean, we definitely agree on the fundamental that I agree that what Biden did in the Facebook situation was wrong. However, I also will continue on to say that that does not scale to the level of the stuff that Trump is doing in any degree. Okay, here's what it boils down to. I think he did all of those things, so we just can't come together. Um, in when you say I think he did all of those things, who are you referring to? Because if you ask me, I personally feel like Trump is doing everything that he's doing right now to kind of lead us into the direction of a civil war so that he can remain president and keep the presidency indefinitely while we figure it out. Okay, I mean, I see that you're saying over and over again that Joe Biden's administration did everything that I'm talking about and even worse. But again, I truly implore you just to provide me with absolutely any sources that show that what Joe Biden did was definitively worse than what Trump is doing now. I mean, even if you want to just show me, show me how it's the exact same thing, because I just named a whole bunch of stuff specifically that Trump has done, and you've named one single thing that Biden's done. So I don't understand how we can compare one to many. One to many just does not equal same at like a fundamental level. But if you can name more factually proven things that have actually been done, I'm willing to change my mind if you can do that. I mean, you don't have to type out 50 things that Joe Biden did. You can literally just say, this is what you should look up on Google to see it. And these are the websites it'll take you to. It's not hard. It's just, you have a claim, you source your claim, you provide evidence for your claim. I feel like if you're going to have an opinion on things that are political, you should definitely have evidence to back up those things that you believe. Kind of that simple. Because every single thing that I believe, man, I could sit here and go over it with you, truly. I could also tell you to just go look through my page. I make a point of when I make videos reporting on news that I provide articles that back up exactly what I'm saying and show the direct correlations in that. You can have your opinion, just don't tout your opinion as a fact. Like, I think that's the big thing that a lot of people don't understand is that you are definitely 100% allowed your own opinion. Just don't sit here touting your opinion as fact. Preface it by saying that in my opinion or personally. Don't say, and I quote your comments directly, Joe Biden's administration did everything you're talking about and worse. Instead, if that's just an opinion, you say, I believe that Joe Biden's administration did everything that you're talking about and worse. It's all in the matter of how you actually phrase what you're saying and how it comes across to others. I'm going to let you know that the way that you're personally phrasing every single statement that you've made makes it come across to absolutely anybody with a rational mind that you're declaring these things as fact and not a matter of an opinion. Hope that helps. Also, throughout the stream, I have labeled things as either an opinion or a fact consistently. When referring facts, I abstain from saying things like in my opinion or I feel. And when I am stating an opinion, I say things like in my opinion or I feel. It's kind of that clear. I mean, just because someone's personal experience leads them to believe something does not make that the common thread of how it is for absolutely everybody. Your subjective experience does not make something fact. Because you believe something due to personal experiences that you may have come through does not inherently mean that that is a fact. If you go outside and every single time you go outside, you see a black car driving by, you never see any other car. In your head, you may think that the only kind of car that exists is a black car, but in reality, anybody could tell you there's many more cars out there than black cars. So it's not a reliable thing to use your subjective experiences to try to put out your opinion as a fact. I'm definitely glad that I don't dual stream to YouTube and TikTok because if I dual stream to YouTube and TikTok, YouTube would be awfully confused on what I'm talking about. Um, like awfully confused. They'd be like, "Yo, why are you just talking to yourself?" I'm not. I promise. Having conversations with the people that are chatting away in the chat box. Oh yeah, like I was saying at the beginning of the stream, I want to point out some new things that I got in the background here. I got some new One Piece Pop Funkos. We got Kaido over here. Kuzan's a new little addition. We got Tony Choppa. We got Portgas the Ace, Vin Smoke Sanji. And then I got a couple more behind me, all the way back there. I think it's Inuyasha, because Inuyasha was like my first anime ever. Um, Vivi and Karu and Roronoa Zoro versus King. So yeah, went to GameStop and figured YOLO. I got a couple bucks to blow. Might as well. I also pre-ordered that new Pokemon game. Pretty excited for that. Oh, I didn't even read off the second part of your message, and nobody knows how to talk to people. Well, hopefully this is a learning experience. Hopefully I kind of let you know a little bit of how to use certain phrasing to get your point across as either an opinion or a fact. And if I did, that's a W. That's the whole point of these streams. It doesn't matter what I'm educating anybody on, as long as I educate somebody on something. It's kind of like the whole point of living, if you ask me, to be able to pass on the knowledge that you learn along the way. I think I'm going to start going back to asking people their name, age, and pronouns when they pop up here. Ooh, that's atrocious. There we go. That's how we really piss off the right. Ask them their pronouns, they're gonna go wild. Ba-da-ba-da-ba-ba. I I'm honestly having a pretty good day though. It's nice to actually pop up here, let people scroll through when they scroll through, talk when they want to talk, and kind of converse with people and get to know them on a personal level, get to know their beliefs and the stuff like that, and just overall converse. Um, Honestly, I'm pretty disappointed in the people on my Facebook though. If I'm just being completely honest with you, like y'all would be absolutely wild the amount of pushback that I get in my messages on Facebook for some of my stuff. So I kind of just opened this up as an opportunity, like if anybody from there wanted to pop on over and kind of air any grievances. But like, I guess they kind of got a little scared, if you know what I mean. Uh, Not gonna lie to you, I would have too though. I wouldn't have wanted to come up here and spout how I'm actively defending G side overseas. Personally, wouldn't want to do that. So that would be pretty bad, guys, right? Pretty bad. I'm trying to think. Um, really, I'm probably gonna just try to push this live till about an hour and a half mark. So probably another 40-ish, 45 minutes or so. Even if that means I'm just talking into the void, honestly, that's completely fine with me. I'll sit here and we can just yibbity yabbity yap. On just yibbity yibbity yap. Yep. Ooh, I could probably play one of my unreleased videos. No, I'm kidding. Um, Honestly, yeah, let's talk about that. Let's talk about how I make my content. So I use this app called Ground News. Ground News essentially lets you know what side's reporting on what, where's a blind spot sitting in the middle, whether it's the left or the right or the center. It's kind of like reporting on stuff the most. A lot of the time when I look for my news, I look for more center or left leaning, obviously, because for some weird reason, on almost any app that rates factuality, right leaning predominant news organizations tend to have a lower factuality rating than those that are center or left. So I kind of go onto Ground News and I look at all of the stuff that's going on. They push out breaking news to you, which is a very clutch feature because you can just like immediately be alerted. And I know a lot of other news apps do that, but the other news apps personally, they don't have the blind spot, so I don't really use them. Um, and it's wild because I'll sometimes go to sleep and I'll have the notifications on to notify me of stuff that's happening, and I'll wake up to like 7 or 8 just breaking news, wild stories, and I'll just be like, "Oh man, I got to figure out how to cover all of these." But then I think to myself, "No, if I just spam the For You page for people, then all it's gonna do is cause me to get a shadow ban." And I know, like with the new TikTok deal looming, that TikTok is kind of like already putting those shadow bans out there on people. So I definitely want to be kind of careful. Is there really being careful when it comes to being on a left wing creator these days? Because everything is the left, ignoring the fact that the predominant group here in America are white supremacist extremists that actually commit T acts here. But yeah, we're worried about the rise in the violence from the left, which is absolutely wild. Um, and it's also wild is that usually when I start these streams, and it seems like that was kind of it, I get 15 minutes of trolls, maybe a person who just wants to come up and own the libs by any means necessary, even if it means espousing absolute nonsense and then resorting to slurs. I usually get that for like the first 15 minutes, then I get a pretty good conversation, and then after the pretty good conversations, sometimes my equipment starts messing up or people just stop showing up. Um, which is honestly why I prefer to make the videos as opposed to the lives. Um, but I guess using the live broadcasting system is a good way to actually get out and connect with people. Also, pretty sad that Teal Shark didn't stick around because I actually really dig Teal Shark's content. Wish I would have said that while they were here. Yeah, they make pretty good content. Ooh, someone named King Trump just joined. Doubt they're gonna stick around too long. I bet you any money if I switched this image over to say debates on, I'd probably get a lot more people. Let's see. All right, we're gonna switch that over and see how this slowly progresses the change of things on this live. Just a quick little test, because I am genuinely curious to know. I hate that the debate space is kind of like the predominant thing that happens here on TikTok. Like, oh my god, if you're running debates, you're gonna get thousands of viewers, which isn't always the case because if you really break it down even more, it goes into kind of like how society views certain creators as opposed to others. I notice it all the time, not even just with me. I follow a lot of POC creators, a lot of people of color, and I just notice like how significantly less views they get compared to predominantly like white content creators. And I guess like it's great that we have representation for the left as a whole. It would be really great to see more diverse representation actually succeed. Uh, you, you you know, I I've also kind of noticed that like the people of color creators get held to kind of like this higher, more stringent standard than the non people of color creators. But that's just me. I've noticed that before I even started making any content on here. I've had many conversations about it as a whole. Sometimes I'm in like Discord servers, and I would love to actually like bring that up, like how um, significantly easier it is for a white person to make it in any scene in America compared to a person of color, but the specific server does not allow discussions about race. So we don't really ever talk about it. Man, I'm really sad. Nobody wanted to come up and debate. Um, I mean, one person, and I definitely appreciated the conversation. It was actually a pretty nice convo. But I sat here for 45 minutes to an hour with my barber preparing just to kind of like go back and forth with people. Nothing. Oh man. Let's see. I had a quick little list of things that I wanted to touch on. And for some reason now I can't find my list. I am blanking on where. Yeah. Anybody want to talk gun control? I'm definitely down to talk some gun control and talk about all of the stuff that's happening here in America currently. If anybody is let down for that. Good conversations we have personally. Very good conversation to have, if you ask me. I wonder. I know back in my days of streaming on Twitch, you were allowed to play music in the background as long as it didn't have like a copyright on it. I'm actually kind of curious to know if that's like still currently the case. Oh shit, we got someone requesting up. Someone named Mindless Creed. Hey, how you doing today?
How's it going, brother? How you doing today?
Pretty good. Can I get the name that you want to go by, age, and pronouns real quick?
Yeah, we can just go ahead and do mindless. I'm 27, and I'm gonna go he, him.
Perfect, perfect. What do you want to chat about?
Honestly, anything, man. So I am a centralized right-leaning, but that's just because I grew up with conservative values. But I'm always willing to hear people's opinions about things, and just kind of came up here today because you seem like you have a very good head on your shoulders, and just kind of want to chat, man. See how you're doing.
Hey, I definitely appreciate it. Honestly, I'm doing pretty good. I'm a little like my head's a little bit more on the fuzzy side today because I went later than expected.
Oh yeah, I
And then
get
on
that.
top of that, my haircut, my barber was supposed to show up at the house at like 11, but then didn't show up until almost 12. And I had originally planned to come on here at 12 and 12:30 and kind of chat with people. Got pushed significantly back.
Oh yeah, no, I get that, man. It always sucks. You gotta cut out early or cut out late. Sitting there trying to get things done, and it doesn't go necessarily the way. So how's streaming going today? How long you been live today?
Sorry, your mic is a little bit windy. It sounds like there might be like some hands moving around on the mic or something.
Ooh, can you hear me now?
Yeah, I can hear you better now.
Okay, cool.
Sorry.
Yeah, my phone was in my pocket. I guess it's not connected to my headphones quite well.
Yeah,
No,
I was
I was
about to
just asking
say.
how long you been live today, man. How's it been going? Getting
Uh,
some good conversation?
yeah, so I've been live for about 50, 53, 50-ish minutes now. The first guy came up, literally bounced all over the place, and then ended up saying a slur, so I had to kick him.
Oh, you ain't ignorance, love
Yeah, and then the second dude, he came up and we actually had a pretty good conversation about whether immigration is a net positive or a net negative as a whole. He had some pretty nuanced takes, and I think I responded to him pretty well.
it. Cool. How did that conversation go? I wasn't here for that.
He essentially his claim, um, sorry, yeah, the noise in your background is like really, really, really loud.
No, it's all right, man. Hey, I'll connect here when I'm in a better spot. No worries. Thank you for talking. I'll come
Oh,
come back up when I'm in a better spot.
yeah, absolutely. I'll just answer that question after you leave. Okay.
Yeah, no worries.
All right. So essentially, that conversation kind of went where he said that he believes that when people come into the country, and if he's in the chat, I definitely implore you, if I say something wrong, correct me, or if someone who was here and listened to that conversation sees I say anything wrong, correct me. But he essentially was saying how when people come into the country, they need to assimilate to how the country is and not try to bring things like Sharia law, essentially forcing people to, in those communities that they come into, forcing people to kind of like assimilate their views from their outside culture as opposed to assimilating into our own culture. I kind of just replied with, I believe that we have a constitution and a democracy in place. one that would protect any citizen that's here in America, citizen or non-citizen, from having to ascribe from things that directly contradict their protections of the Constitution, regardless of whether that was the norm in their home country or not. When they come here, that's not something that they're attempting to do because it's not something that would be able to be done. More so when they come into this country and they decide to practice their own religion, um, that is something separate than someone mandating they do it. A lot of the times, people come into these countries trying to escape things. His premise was that if you come into America, you should be the traditional sense of an American and assimilate and adopt Western culture. I believe, kind of like, let me see what you just said. I feel like learning our laws are and our culture mix is a good idea. Bring their exactly. That was kind of like my entire premise, is that when people come into this culture, I think one of the best things about America is that this is a melting pot of diversity. That you can come into America and you can be in one city that is reminiscent of uh, Mexico, or one city that is reminiscent of China, or another city that is reminiscent of Russia, and they take the best of these countries and they kind of like bring them into us and make our country as a whole better. I don't think that having exclusionary tactics to other country is a good thing for us as Americans. I don't think it's a good thing for us in terms of evolution, or growing as a country as a whole. I think if we stop allowing outside cultures to come in and influence us, we will essentially have no real culture of our own, because everything throughout American culture, for the most part, is, and this part isn't in my belief, which I did go over earlier. I will phrase things that are my personal beliefs with that. In my belief, one of the biggest things that we could have happening here in America, it's good, you know, to have diverse cultures, because we as a as a culture don't necessarily have a set culture. We're not the oldest country out there. We haven't been around forever. Our culture is not one. It is just one that was culminated through the mix of many. And trying to negate that mix reduces us to what? Not something I want to see. See, don't get me wrong, I do vote majority Republican, but I'm also not brainwashed and think people. I'll let you finish that. I don't think that there's anything wrong with inherently being Republican a lot of the times, because there are some Republicans out there that do have pretty valid takes on certain situations. When we go into like MAGA as a whole subsect of Republicans, that's when I believe that you kind of approach extremely dangerous territory. I equivalate MAGA to a cult, essentially. Um, I don't think that there's anything anyone could tell me that would ever change my mind on that. And I know that's kind of like a horrible thing to say as someone who's open to conversations and debates. But I don't think, given everything that's happened and all of the excuses, defense, and attitudes and personalities that MAGA has accumulated and shown throughout the past almost decade now, can lead me to believe anything other than them being a cult. Um, Mostly because, like most diehard MAGAs, will excuse absolutely anything. And I don't think a lot of Republicans do that. Like at base, I think there are a lot of Republicans out there that want to hold Trump responsible and want to hold MAGA responsible for the harmful and dangerous stuff that they're doing to this country. And for that, I do respect those specific kinds of Republicans. But once you go into the MAGA ground, I believe that you are no longer speaking from a sense of like rational or logic. And think people need to be respectful of each other. We need to keep talking so we don't have another G side, because when we stop talking, bad things happen. 100% agree with you. Isaac, you say, do you feel the same of the far left? So when you say far left, I will ask for clarification. Do you mean like radical leftist? People who is, do you mean radical leftist? Because I personally am not a radicalist. I get how radicalists think and believe, because I believe that radicalists on either side believe that this country as a whole is way too far gone, and the only way to effectuate change is to burn it all down. Sometimes in more than likely the literal sense on both sides. Um, but what would I say is the opposite of MAGA for the Dems? That's a real hard question. And I don't say this to kind of like put down any one side on this specific topic right here, but I don't typically see uh, Democrats propping up and idolizing one specific person. I mean, I guess you could probably argue that the closest thing that we have, the closest thing, which in reality is not really even that close, I want to say, that we would have two MAGA as a whole, wouldn't even be Antifa. Because again, I touched on this a little bit earlier. Antifa is not an organization. There's no backers, there's no founders, there's no leaders, there's no nothing. Antifa quite literally only means anti-fascist. And I think that when we get to a point in our society where we're demonizing, dehumanizing, or punishing people for being anti-fascist, that should be a huge wake-up call for both parties, left and right, because everybody should be inherently anti-fascist. Like that was like a huge thing here in America. Everybody was Antifa, like during World War II. But for some reason, I guess now Antifa and anti-fascist has been equated with woke ideology, and it comes to that harmful terminology of like owning the libs by any means necessary that I see a lot. Um, because to say Antifa is bad is again saying that like being anti-fascist is bad. Which kind of ties into again why I feel like people who are MAGA are inherently very dangerous, because they push rhetoric like Antifa bad, without ever doing any research behind it. Um, I think that the damage that people who take advantage of absolutely anything, um, that they commit is bad. So in any subsect, MAGA being January 6th, the left loosely being the George Floyd situation, the protests that happened during then, that kind of got a little bit more escalated. Um, I think when you look at it, there's going to be people from any subsect or belief or any celebration or any protest that kind of like uses any event that happens to kind of sow chaos and do these kind of things, if you know what I mean. I mean, we see it when there's giant football games that happen, and one team loses. You'll have that subsect of people that aren't the, representation for the entire group or the entire fan base that go out and flip cop cars and burn buses. You have it all the time with anything that goes on. You have it during boycotts for movies. You have it during um, times that say someone's favorite politician said something wrong, that they didn't agree with, and now they're out rioting. Um, every single subsect of anything, any belief, is going to have extremists that are going to take advantage of situations and kind of sow chaos and destruction in those situations. I don't think that those outliers are representative of the entire group. Um, so just like I would not blame all of MAGA for the actions of the January Sixers, I would hold MAGA accountable for excusing the January Sixers. Just like I'm not going to hold all people who believe that believe in Antifa views, anti-fascist views, or Black Lives Matter as a whole. I'm not going to demonize them because a small subsect of people used those situations and events to sow chaos across the United States. If that makes any sense to you. I'll hold anybody who justifies anything like that specifically, um, accountable. It doesn't matter if they're left or right. I had a conversation just earlier where someone wanted to point out something that Biden did during his presidency with the Mark Zuckerberg situation, and I have absolutely no issue condemning Biden for that situation either. I mean, I'm from LA. I don't really like how the media skewed the protest riots. A lot of the times, what I've noticed, and I've been to quite a few protests myself, been involved in certain legal repercussions for said protests. Never riots. I 100% promise. I've never participated in any riots. I've been at protests before they turned into riots, and I can say And this is one of those in my personal experiences from what I've seen, both through living it and watching online and talking to other people that have gone to these protests. A lot of the times that it is the police that kind of instigate the violence and stuff like that, whether that be from physically trying to push protesters back when they're not actively trying to push out, firing off rubber bullets, throwing tear gas canisters. A lot of the times that it is the police that kind of escalate these things, and then sometimes you have rogue agents, um, people that I would more likely describe as anarchists that just want to take advantage of those situations, and then they start the chaos, and then things devolve. But I don't like the representation that all protests. I don't think either of you that are in my chat, Mindless or Isaac, are saying this, but I don't like the rhetoric that all protests that are done by the left are inherently bad, or all protests that are done by the right are inherently bad, because they're not. And not every protest is a riot. And just because something devolves into a little bit more chaos because of police intervention, does not necessarily mean it's a riot either. There's always going to be bad apples that make the whole basket rot. I agree with you. And I think protest done correctly is good. So then that comes like a little bit of a slippery slope, because, like, what do you mean by protest done correctly? I do believe that every event should have an appropriate response. But, like, when we go to, say, the protest happening in Nepal, India, right now, and how they're actively like going against the government, burning down buildings and stuff like that. I believe that once you get to a spot, um, where words aren't ever going to be enough, that those protests are a mandatory part of like changing as a country. So that I agree with. I don't believe that we've gotten to, well, I kind of believe that we've gotten to that point, but at the same time we haven't, because we have those checks and balances in place from keeping Trump to actually full on sending us into a dictatorship slash authoritarian regime. And because of those checks and balances working currently, I don't think that we've gotten to the point where we need to like burn it all down. But there are some protests out there where that kind of response is absolutely valid, especially when you're doing a directly fascist and authoritarian regime that is being actively complicit in, G side, or funding G side, or, trying to subjugate the people, withholding food supplies, poisoning the water supply, stuff like that. I believe that protests at that point do need to kind of escalate to the point where they are. So from what I see your comment. I'll read it out because I am recording this VOD so that I can look back. Mindless said, "I think we need to step away from the MAGA name and Antifa because of the angry that comes with them." So a lot of the times, what I see is that people use the "I am Antifa" thing as a joke on the left, because they're kind of like, "Oh, look, and I'm just speaking because I'm in these communities. I see how they talk. A lot of times it's kind of like, yo, if I just claim that I'm Antifa, it's gonna piss them off. Um, like Antifa as an organization, not Antifa as anti-fascist. But again, we have to break down that there is no Antifa organization. There are no leaders. There is no one individual that they prop up to be the savior of all or anything like that. And a lot of people who have anti-fascist views don't necessarily call themselves Antifa. And the difference between that and MAGA is that most people who identify as MAGA proudly identify as MAGA, and openly identify as MAGA and support the MAGA movement through apparel, merch. It's the main reason that I have this hat up here in the corner, is because MAGA popularized the red hat movement. Um, like, they don't say I'm MAGA as a joke. MAGA doesn't have any like double entendre when they say I'm MAGA, because like if you think about what MAGA stands for, at that point it's, what are you saying? I make America great again? No, they're using it as just I can't remember the terminology, a non-acronym at that point. They're not using it as an acronym. They're using it as a label for who they believe that they are as a group, and that their leader is Donald Trump. They have an actual leader within that organization that they prop up and worship and justify and make excuses for, and commit again acts, groups of them commit in that name acts of violence. Nobody's committing violence in the name of Antifa specifically. They're doing it in the name of anti-fascist views, saying that this system is directly a fascist regime. But they're not saying that I'm doing it for Antifa. They're doing it because they're anti-fascist. I live in Portland, Oregon. I do not agree with bringing. I do agree with bringing some help, but not the altitude that they did. So I believe that if we think about the help that he's bringing into these countries, into these states, um, a lot of it is unasked for, and then that's where it becomes a violation of checks and balances and the state's power as a whole that it has over its state. If the leadership within that state says, "Hey, no, we don't want this," then it's not on the president to say, "I'm doing it anyway." It's on the president to respect that, especially if the situation in those countries haven't gotten to the point of like full on chaos. Like, I get saying that you're trying to curb violence within these communities is great, but then exaggerating numbers, exaggerating statistics. I believe one person said that there in one weekend was more deaths in Chicago than the entirety of the Iraqi war, which is just like in 2 seconds I was able to look that up and not and like completely debunk that. But they were sitting there and they were seriously saying that as a justification to why Trump should be able to send the National Guard / Marines into these cities. I don't think that we've gotten to a point within any state in our country where we need to be sending the military in at all. Like, I don't think that's the military's job. The military's job is not to go against its citizens, it's to defend its citizens, all of its citizens, even its citizens that have contradictory views to what maybe they hold as active people. Um, but I personally, I don't agree with sending militaries into cities, especially not without like the governor's approval. But that's just me, you know. Ladies, gentlemen, and any non-binary pals that are out there, we're actually at an hour and 13 minutes in right now. But the chop zone and other issues in Portland have been overwhelming us many years. Cops, what it should be. We have a lot to work on here. What's going on in the city? Yeah, I definitely agree. But I feel like legislation needs to be passed at that point at a state level. Changes need to be effectuated at a state level, not at a federal level. We don't need to be again sending in the military to essentially force these states into compliance with what Trump believes that his view of a peaceful city should be. We should be voting in legislators and voting for bills that are actually going to effectuate change within these states and communities. That's me personally, you know. I think that's a pretty common view, though. Because, like, don't get me wrong, I am not a statist in any degree. I don't believe that everything should be left up to the states. I believe that there is a such thing as good federal intervention. Like slavery, that being like one of the best things to point out there. I truly believe that if slavery had been left up to the states, that we would still have a bunch of states to this day that would be participating in it. It is because of the federal protections that we have that allow things like that not to happen. But I definitely believe that there needs to be like a certain level of things that are left up to the states. Thanks for being civil. Nice chatting with you. I have to head off to work. Yeah, man. I appreciate you stopping in. I appreciate the civil discussion and conversation. Truly, it's really nice to actually be able to discuss things with people and not be yelling back and forth or losing my voice. I'm getting over a cold right now, so not having to like raise my voice and yell at people is amazing. And then I guess I'll on one last thing, I'll reply to Isaac. Isaac said the last thing that Isaac said was standing on the sidewalk protesting, fine. Standing in the street hitting my car, not so good. Yeah, I already kind of touched on that though with my response. All right, I think we've gotten to pretty much a how do you say stagnant point? Um, double checking just to make sure nobody on the book decided that they wanted to pop on here last second. No, it kind of looks like that might just be it. Yeah. I will leave those of you that are listening here with one last thing. In 2025 so far alone, there have been 324 mass shootings recorded. In 2024, there were 586 mass shootings recorded. Um, if you cannot understand how we need to effectuate real change within gun reform in this country, I do not know what to say to you. There are many, 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 many things that we could do that could help this. We could implement universal background checks in closing sale loopholes on a federal level. We could truly beat in child access prevention training during the purchase of a firearm and the licensing of getting said firearm, and also really beat into that training safe storage laws. We should have harsher punishments for people that are convicted of committing a crime while in possession of a firearm, whether they used that firearm or not in the commission of said crime. I believe that there should not be cities out there in the United States that arrest a person for participating in a shooting of any kind, and then that person is out within 24 to 48 hours on bail. I don't believe that that should be a thing. Um, in general, I think we need to send on a state level more funding to our community violence intervention programs. Really kind of have those feet on the ground, kind of letting people know that gun violence is a serious issue here in America. A lot more free trainings on how to safely handle firearms. And yeah, there's so many different things. I just really wanted to point that out because in the past, I believe it was six mass shootings in the past 48 hours alone. Six mass shootings in the past 48 hours alone. A grand total of almost over 20 people killed in those mass shootings altogether. Probably closer to 30. At least 15 to 25 injured in those shootings. So yeah, it's a real issue. Maybe instead of focusing on all of the things that are not that important here in America, we should focus on things that are. You guys have a great day, and I'm out of here.